All right, so what's going on, everyone? It's Eli, back again for another video. And for today's video, we're just going to be creating a quick design that I came up with. This is a design here. We're going to be using something called React Tilt, and that's how we get this effect right here. We have our buttons with some hover effects, and then if we go responsive, we have a drop down, and that drop down has a blur as well. And I don't know if you guys noticed, this whole entire background here, that's blurred also. So I'm going to teach you guys how to do that. Sorry. All right, so I did a create React app. So to do that, you just type yarn create React app, and then you put the name right here. All right, I already did that, so I'm not. And then once that does everything, you just type code with the period at the end, and that will open it up in VS Code if you're using that. If you're using Atom, just type Atom with the period or whatever text editor you're using. All right, so what we're going to be using in this tutorial, we're going to be using, of course, React Tilt. So we need to install that, and we need to add styled components as well. So we'll say yarn add React Tilt and styled components. All right, we'll let that do its thing. Let's clean up some of the files. So we're not going to need our app.css. Let's go ahead and delete that. We don't need our app.test. Let's delete that as well. Looks like that completed down there. We can go ahead and type yarn start, or if you're on npm and you don't have yarn, just type npm run start. All right, let's go to our app.js. We'll type command A, and then we'll do RAFCE. For me to just, so if you type RAFCE, you see it does like a starter component. The name of that extension for VS Code is called React Snippets. So let's just type app really quick. All right, there we go. All right, so we have style components added. We can go back to this window. All right, and there is our app. We also we're going to be using Railway. So let's go to Google Fonts. All right, let's add Railway. We're using 400, 5, 6. I don't think we're using all these, but I think I added them, some of them by mistake. All right, let's copy this link. And then we go to public in our text editor, go to index.html, and I'm just going to paste all that right under that. So then we have to set our font family. So let's go to our index.css. All right, so we're just going to delete all this. All right. And we're going to say all. We want everything to have a margin of 0 and a padding of 0. And then we want to target our body and give it that font family. And then we need to do the same for the button, because sometimes, for some reason, it doesn't add it to buttons. All right, there we go. All right, so what we need to do now is let's create an assets folder. Let's close this. New folder inside of our source. We'll say assets, and that's where our images will live. And I already have the images saved, so I'm just going to drag them over to our assets. I'm going to copy and paste. There we go. And you can download these from GitHub. I'll put the link in the description. All right, we have our app set up. All right, let's create another folder called components. All right, and the first file we're going to work with is the nav bar. So we'll just type nav bar .js. And we'll say RAFCE H1 navbar. All right, and then let's import that in. So we're going to type navbar. And if we just wait like a second or two, you see here it says auto import. Just going to press enter and it automatically imports it right up here. All right. There's our navbar. Perfect. All right. Let's see what else. Let's just make this a fragment. So delete that div. And let's start working on our navbar. Okay, so let me pull the design up. All right, so this is what we're working with. I'll have this in the description as well so that you guys can mess around with it. But we're going to create an actual nav, and then we're going to need to put a wrapper in so that the max width is 1,000 pixels. And that will float in the center, and then we have our logo and then our links to the right. All right, so let's minimize that. And then let's go ahead and let's create that container. Oh. All right. Let's import our styled components. So if you see how we're at styled, if we click enter for auto import, it imports that. And we want to style div. All right. We also need to create one for our nav. And then all right, and then we need to import our icon. So the way we do that is we say import React component as logo. We'll say logo icon. And then we import that from, we're going back a folder to the assets. And then what's the name? I think it's called logo.svg. And then let's add that icon in. Oh. Forgot to add, there's another thing that I use called auto close. All right, there we go. And then let's add our links. So, all right, let's create another component, or a style div as we should say, and we call that menu. And then we want another one. And then we're gonna have a wrapper around those links. And the reason we're putting a wrapper is because when we go on mobile, we want this to be like a blurred background. So that's that. Let's see, got our link wrapper, and then we need our menu links. So those are going to be A tags, styled A. And then we need a button as well. That's this join now button. All right. This one we're going to call menu link. And our styled button is a button. All right, cool. We also need a hamburger, and when I mean hamburger, I mean these three little lines right here. We call those hamburgers. So we'll say hamburger style div. All right, perfect. All right, so let's work on our nav as a whole. Well, you know what? Let's add that hamburger in. With our hamburger, we need 3 span tags. So we'll do span times 3. Then we have in here, let's add our link wrapper. Oops, I am messing up right now. All right, then we want our menu link. Yep. You know what? It's not self-closing. And let's give it a name of search. And remember, it's an A tag, so we have to add an href to it. For now, we're just not going to put anything. I think I put that wrong. Excuse me. All right, and then we're just going to press Shift Option and press the down arrow so we can copy it down. And I think we had login and then the join now button. And then let's add a button in. And that says join now. All right, perfect. We need to have this handle our state. So for when we're on mobile and we open and close our menu, we want that state to save. And we are going to put use state. All right, we'll say use state. We go to the black one. We'll say is open, and then the initial state will be false. So when we first load the page, the nav menu on mobile will be closed. All right. And we want our hamburger. When we click that, on click equals, let's do an arrow function, and we'll set is open to not is open. So we just want that to toggle it. And then we need to pass our is open attribute, as we should call it. Is open, we want to pass that to the menu because we're going to be putting an animation for showing and hiding the actual menu. All right, and we'll say is open. Perfect. All right, so let's start working on the styling. Okay, let's see. All right, so for our nav, we want to display flex. We want to justify content space between. We want to align items center. Let's refresh this. It's not auto refreshing for some reason. Yeah, we're gonna close this out and restart it. All right, let that do its thing. All right, and then we want flex wrap to be wrap. All right, then we want position absolute, because when we add our hero section, we don't want the nav bar covering it up. Top 0, left 0, right 0, and then we want a z index of 3 because we want it above all of our other elements no matter what. All right, let's work on the container now. All right, we'll say display flex. What is going on? Why is it? Okay, there we go. Now it's loaded. All right, display flex will justify content. I would say space between. Let's give it a width of 100%. All right, so those spread apart. You know what? We don't even need this right here. Space between will align items center. Let's see. Flex wrap so that when we go to a smaller screen size, that our elements will wrap below one another, and then we'll say max width 1000 pixels. We want to give it a margin of auto. Perfect, so that aligned it in the center. Okay, and then let's give a padding of 2 rems. There we go. Okay. All right, now let's target our logo, which is an SVG, so we can target it right from CSS, and then we will put the height as 1.4 rems. I made it a little smaller, perfect. And then we want to do cursor pointer. Generally, you would want it to be a button that goes to your home page, but we're not going to do that right now. We're just focusing on design at the moment. All right, let's target our anchor tags. So that's the search and the login, and we'll say text decoration none. We want to remove that line. We're going to change the color. What color are we using? 858 586. All right. Font size 0.9 rems. This one a little smaller. There we go. All right. Let's give a padding of 0.7 rems and 1.5 rems. All right, let's space them out a little. We're going to have an animation, so we want to say transition all 0.25 seconds. I'll say 0.2 seconds, ease in. And we want the border radius. Oops. Border radius 0.5 rems. Let's say font weight 500. Oh, closed it by mistake. And let's add our hover animation to it. So we say and hover when we're in styled components or SAS, whichever one you're using. And then we want to say 7781D4. And then we want the background color of the individual links to change to this color, E7, E9, FC. Perfect. Okay. All right, so we did that. Now what's next? Let's work on our actual menu. All right. Actually, you know what? Let's work on our join now button. Okay. All right, so for our join now button, let's just make this a little smaller. I don't think it's gonna update anyways, but I'm saying join now. Font size 0.8 rems. We want a background color of F7 4C5. Why does it keep doing that? Let's see. All right. We want to remove that border. I want to give it padding. Let's see, 0.8 rems and 1.1 rem. Oops. All right. So that widen it. Okay. I'm gonna give it a color of white. Let's say border radius 1 rem. And we'll give it a box shadow of 0 pixels, 13 pixels, 24, -7, I think on the spread. And then we'll give it the color of EC B67. We want to give this a transition as well, so we'll just copy that and paste it. We'll say 0.3. Margin left 0.5 rems. I think something's going on with our widths. Yeah, we definitely needed that. All right, so yeah, just go back to our nav and add that flex box back. All right, and let's go back to our button. And we want to put our cursor as pointer. And then we want to actually handle our hover state. Okay, so we're gonna do our box shadow again. and this is going to change to 17, 16, 11, and then we're going to transform. We want it to do a little bounce up every time we go on it. Let me show you what that looks like. Let's go back to full. When we hover over, it just bounces up. Very subtle. Okay. Did the cursor pointer not go through? Transform, translate Y. So we want to go on the Y axis, and we want to go up 5 pixels. So we do the negative. There we go. It's a subtle jump. You know what? We can do 2. I like that. All right, perfect. And then let's see how it looks on mobile. So we inspect it, push it to mobile. Not too good. We need to deal with our hamburger. All right. Before we do that, let's just add a media query. Max with 670 pixels, and we're going to put our padding 0.3 rounds. All right. You know what? We don't need that. Okay. Now let's deal with this hamburger. So you don't see anything at the moment. That's because we have to adjust the colors of the hamburger. So let's say for right now, display is none. So whenever we're on the bigger size, we don't want the hamburger to display. Of course, you can't see it right now because we haven't added any styles, but we only want it to show on mobile. So, you know, let's just remove this display for now. Let's say flex direction. Why does it do that? Cursor, pointer, and then we need to work on those span tags that are inside of it. So that's for each line. And we want to give it a height of 2 pixels and a width of 25. We want to give it a color, background color of, what color did we use before? We used this. I'm gonna give a margin bottom of 4 pixels and a border radius of 5 pixels. My question is, why is it not showing at the moment? Let's see. Do we add it? Yep, there's our hamburger. We had to add display flex. Okay. So Now we see our nav, but we don't want it showing at the moment. We're on a bigger size. Alright, so when we go smaller, we want this to hide and only this to show. When we go bigger, we want this to hide and only that to show. So for now, we're just gonna say display none. And we're gonna just copy this media query. And we're going to say display flex. And that should do it. What is going on? Media max width. This is 768 pixels. It should be, oh, I added flex there. Simple mistake. Still showing for some reason. Oh. We want to put this at 670 again. We can leave it at 768. All right. So now, when we go above 768, it disappears. When we go smaller, it shows. All right, now we want to handle our link, or we want to handle our menu next. So let's go to our menu. We'll say display flex. We'll justify content center. We'll align items. Actually, we want to align item center and justify content space between, and then position relative. All right, and then we're gonna add one big media query at media max width, and we want to give that max width 768 pixels. All right, and then we just want to, for a menu, all right, we want to we already gave the flex. We want to change the flex direction to column. Let's refresh. You know what? I need to add this to the link wrapper. Let's go to our link wrapper real quick. Let's just copy this. Want to give it an overflow of hidden. Let's work on our link wrapper. So let's go to our link wrapper. We'll say display flex. And then we want to justify content space between, align items center. See if we got it aligned right. Okay, there we go. Align item center. We want to say position relative. And then let's add a padding of 1.5 rem and 0. Let's give it a border radius of 1 rem. So that's going to be this right here. Okay. border radius of 1 rem, margin top 1 rem, and then we have to add a box shadow for that. -4 pixels, 8 pixels, 15 pixels, and 1. I'm gonna do a RGB, and we want black, and 0.07 as our box shadow. Okay. We did our flex direction. Let's set our max height. And then from there, before we passed in our is open. So right up here in our menu, we passed is open in. On styled components, we can just go ahead in and access that value. So is open, we'll do an arrow function. So if it is open, we want the height to be 300 pixels. If not, we want the height to be 0 pixels. And this should have, all right, and then we're gonna give our width of 100%. That should make it jump below. There we go. So now, see, there isn't an animation. So let's do transition, max height, 0.3 seconds, ease. Let's say ease in, out. There we go. There's our animation. All right, what do we have next? We need to work on our links. You know what? No need to work on our links because we already did. We can actually go ahead and grab this and move it to our menu link, or move this A tag, because we would just be repeating ourselves. And I think I messed it up. All right, so that's it for our nav bar. Let's go ahead and create a new component, and we'll call it the hero section. So type hero.js, we'll type RAFCE, and then let's put h1 hero just so that we can see it on the screen. And don't forget to go into our app.js and import that hero function we just made. And then let's refresh. There we go. And the reason you see it above it is because, remember, our nav bar is position absolute. All right, so let's go ahead and work on that. Okay. All right, so we are at our hero. Let's import styled components. Styled from styled components. Okay, and then in our hero we have our some text on the left side, we have our buttons, and then we have this image on the right. All right, so let's create something called a container. We'll say styled div. So we added that container in. We're going to need to create a wrapper. So this is the container. We're going to need that wrapper so that we max out at 1,000 pixels and it's aligned center. So let's add that wrapper. So let's create that, shift option down, wrapper. We need to create another wrapper. So we'll say inner wrapper, inner wrapper. We want to create something called left for the left side. And then the right, we'll just call, we have text. All right, we'll just start with this. All right. So let's go ahead. Let's add our wrapper in. All right, and then our inner wrapper. Okay. Now we have a div. Actually, that's our left. Okay, and then I'm going to have another component just for our text. So for now, we'll just type h1 hero, and then on the left side, it's just going to be an image. So let's put an image for now, an image tag, and we're not going to put anything. Okay. All right, so if we go back here, we need to import this background image and this image right here. So if we go to our assets and we click BG, this is actually our background image. We just added a blur above it. So keep that in mind. If you're ever looking for images, I got this off of Unsplash. And I think I just typed paint. And then that's what came up, but they have many of other colors, so it's a really cool thing to add to your websites. All right, so let's get started working on the container. So we'll say height 100, view height, we'll say width 100%. We'll say display, flex, justify, content, center, well align, items, center. All right, we don't have our image in yet. And then let's add our background image in. So let's see. All right. So we'll say const. All right, not const. Import. We'll call it image. That's for our hero image. From, let's go to our assets folder. Hero PNG, and then we have our background, so we'll import BG, we'll call it, from assets BG PNG, and I'll put these images in the description, links to them, so you can go download those. That hero image, that's this one, which is right here. And then that is it for now. So for our image, let's add our source in. We'll just say image. There we go. It's really big, so we're gonna have to adjust the size. And then let's pass our background image in. So BG equals BG. So that passes our background image into our container. And then from there, we can background image. We're going to use the URL. And then we're going to access that background. There we go. We can close this. All right, of course that doesn't look good right now, but we'll get to that. So we don't want it to repeat. And by the way, when you guys add these images, do not make the images too big. Let me see the size I made. 1440 by 1024. And I think that's just a good size to where it doesn't take too long to load. I know when I downloaded it off of Unsplash, it was like 6,000 pixels. So that's way too big, and it'll make your site take too long to load. So we'll say background size, cover, and background position. We'll give it center. Okay. And then, all right, perfect. That's where we want it. If we resize it, it doesn't matter. It stays in the center. Okay. All right, now we have our wrapper. And our wrapper, the reason we have that is for our actual blur that we're adding to the top of it. All right, so we'll say height 100 view height, width 100 view width, and then as a backup, we'll give it a background color. Background color, we'll do RGB, and then we'll say 255, 255, 255, and then 0.9. All right, and that's just as our backup, just in case we don't have support for, just in case there's no support for the backdrop filter. Not all browsers can use it, or it can work with it. We'll just say, yeah, 0.9 looks better. All right, and then there's something in CSS to where we can check that support. So we'll say at supports, and then you do the parentheses. We'll say dash WebKit backdrop filter none, or backdrop filter none. All right. And that just says if it supports the WebKit version of backdrop filter or just a regular one, then go ahead and use it. If it doesn't support it, it will just literally skip this, whatever's inside of this block. All right. So we'll say WebKit backdrop filter, and we'll give it a blur of, let's say 35 pixels. And then we want to add a regular backdrop filter. Give it a blur 35 pixels. Okay, and then we also need to add this background color, and we don't want it as dark, so we'll say 0.5. Okay, and that looks good. Yep, looks perfect. All right, so here, let's try 0.4. 4 isn't that bad as well. We'll do 4. Okay, now let's work on that inner wrapper that houses everything. So that's what we'll do for our max width of 1,000 pixels, where we want it to float in the center. We'll say height 100% of the parent. Why does it always do that? Oops. We'll say margin, auto, display, flex. You want to justify everything or put everything center. Align items, center. And then on mobile, we want it to wrap, so we'll say flex wrap, and that just puts everything side by side. Perfect. Okay, what do we have next? The left side. All right, so for the left side, we'll say width 40% of the parent. Why does it always do that? 40% of the parent. Then we need to add a media query. What is going on? There we go. Okay, so we want a media query, and we want to add the max width of 678 pixels. Okay, and we want that width to be 100%. All right, now we need to adjust the size of this image. It is way too big, so what we can do is we can just target the image. What is it in the inner wrapper? And for the image, let's give it the width of 100% of its parent. All right, and then what we also need to do is add in our tilt. So remember, we're using React tilt. So let's import tilt from React tilt, and then we want to add some styling to that. So we'll say const tilt wrapper equals style tilt. And that'll just style that tilt component that we imported. And we'll give it a width of 60%, because 60 plus 40 equals 100. And let's add a media query for that. So let's just copy and paste this one. All right. And if we want a 670, and this one's 670. Oops. And then let's add that tilt wrapper in. Then for our tilt wrapper, it needs this options. And we'll just give it the max tilt of 25. That just tells how far it will tilt. Perfect. Looks good. Okay. All right, so that is looking good. What else do we need? All right, we need our text. So let's create another component. And let's call it hero text, because we like to separate things into smaller components. We don't want huge components. And you can always go back and refactor, but when you have smaller components, it's just easier to deal with and easier to test. All right, so what text do we need? Let's see. Online education. Okay. So that's, we'll give that an H5. And then let's just copy and paste it. And then we'll do H1. We need 4 of them. Times 4 tab. First one says learn. Second one says anything, anytime, anywhere. Let's add the period. And then we're just going to need our buttons. So let's add a container for that. For now, we'll just do a div. And then our 2 buttons. First one's going to say read more. Second one's going to say 7-day free trial. Let's give this one a class name of read more. Okay. All right. So let's import that over. So hero text, auto import. Okay, let's go back to our hero text. Const container equals style. Let's import our style components. That's a div. Okay, and then for that container, let's see. All right, we'll just adjust everything from here. Padding, we'll say 1 rem. And then let's work on our H5. So for our H5, we want the color, let's see, 51s. Let's go back over here. Oops. font weight, we want to give it 500. Font size 0.9 rems. Margin bottom 1 rem. Give it a font size. So for our H1 tags, we're just going to target all of them at once because they're going to share some styles. 3.5 rems, and then font weight 900. All right, and now, so generally when you want to target, because as you see, they're different colors. Generally, people would put like class names in. I found the easiest thing to do is we target the nth of type. So we'll say and nth of type. We only want one of those colons. All right. And then we're going to do 1 for the first one. And that one is a lighter purple and then goes darker from there. So we want to give it a color of, let's see what that color is. This is our color. This one needs to, the font weight on the first one needs to be smaller, so font weight. We'll give that 700 and give the other ones 900. And then let's target these colors. All right, so let's copy this down 4 times. 2, 3, 4. You know what? This has to be in H1. So let's go down. Make sure you put this or you nest it inside of the H1 tag for it to work correctly. All right. So this is, we don't need that font weight. This color for the third one. This color for the last one. Oops. Okay, there we go. Looking good. Okay, now we need to work on our buttons. So we're just gonna call this, let's copy that up. We're gonna call it a button container. And that's just gonna wrap our buttons. And margin top 2 rems. All right, I moved it down some, and now let's target our button. Okay, so we want the background color to be, let's grab this color. grab the right color. 8. Let's move that 3. There we go. So background color, we want a border of none. Padding 0.9 rem to 1.1 rem. Color, we want it white. Border radius 1 rem. Box shadow. So we can use the box shadow. What do we use it on? I think the nav bar. 13/24/7. Figure out text. Let's just copy this. See how that's looking. Okay. Transition. 0.3 seconds. Ease in, outs. And margin. Gosh, cannot type. 0.5 rems. Font size 0.8 rems. Cursor pointer. And then we can copy and paste this hover. Yep. Change these colors. All right, so now we need to target the read more button. Make sure we're nested in the button. Actually, you know what? No, because then the style won't work. Read more. We're targeting that class, and let's give it this color. So color. Background. Transparent. We want the border to be 3 pixels solid, and we want that color there again. Oops. And then we want to add a hover effect. Let's see, just gonna copy and paste it from here. Yeah, copy and paste the whole thing. You know what, we don't need to add this because it's in the parent. Let's go to our tilt wrapper, and we need to add. So I had the mistake of putting that. It needs to be display none. Yep. So when we get smaller, it just disappears. And what we also need to do, we're almost done, is add that white blur to the background. So we need to go back to our nav bar, and let's go to the menu. I want to say, yep, the menu, and let's go back to our hero and just copy and paste this into our menu under the media query. And then let's change this to change that to 15 pixels. We don't want it so harsh. There we go. All right, so we are all set. If you guys have any more questions, just go ahead and post a comment. I appreciate it if you guys go ahead and like this video. I appreciate the support. Dislike it if you don't like it. Tell me what I can improve on. But thank you for following along in this video, and you guys have a good one.